Welcome to Legendary Drops. My name is Ian, and I have no idea how this is going to go. This is my first game review. I've never done this before. I never saw myself doing this before, but with enough nudging, I guess I'm doing this now. I've been playing Last Epoch for about 100 hours or so, maybe a little bit more than that, enjoying the end game, and I felt it was time for me to give my thoughts on the game. I want to give a shout out to my stream, as they're the ones that have helped me while I talked out my thoughts while I was playing the game, while I was experiencing it. So I hope you guys all enjoy this. If you guys do, drop a comment down below, and I guess I'll do more in the future. Last Epoch is complete, I think. Kind of? I don't really know exactly how to explain how holistic of an experience it is playing Last Epoch in comparison to some of the games that are like it. Diablo 3, Diablo 2, Grim Dawn, Path of Exile, you get the picture. This isn't to say any of those games are bad. They're some of my favorite games of all time. But Last Epoch just ends up being that game where when you're thinking to yourself, man, I hope that game has this, it has it. It has it all. I want to contextualize this by saying this is a game made by gamers. It's obvious not only from the design of the game, but from the formation of the company itself. From what I know, 11th Hour Games was formed in the comments section of a Reddit thread. Fans of all the ARPGs you and I are fans of, this team has thoughtfully added every favorite mechanic from all of the best ARPGs down to endgame loops. Everything here was built thoughtfully and purposefully. Last Epoch is a game that you will want to keep playing, but it's a game that's still missing something. All right, so first I want to start where every player starts, the new player experience. No matter what, your first impressions are probably the most valuable thing out of any gaming experience you're ever going to have. And it's one of the main reasons why I never really got into Path of Exile, because the barrier to entry to get into the game was so steep that I just ended up walking away from it time and time again, no matter how many times I tried playing the game. This is an area of great strength and great weakness for Last Epoch. Performance is pretty good. It plays really smooth on my home PC using a 3080, no FPS issues, no crashing, regardless of how many enemies are on the screen at one time. But I will say that when I use my gaming laptop with a 3060 inside of it, I was actually experiencing some pretty serious performance issues when there were a lot of effects going on the screen. This game feels incredibly responsive, and I mean instantaneously responsive. Responsive on a level that I felt it was necessary to talk about because it feels so damn good to cast spells and use attacks. You hit the button, it hits the enemy. No weird delay, no weird pause. You just hit the enemy. And this is something that a lot of ARPGs get wrong. Heck, it's something that a lot of games in general get wrong. The feel of a game is something that will turn you away almost instantly. If the game doesn't feel good in your hands, it's likely something you're not going to end up playing. This game feels great to play moment to moment. Last Epoch's graphics are something. The world of Last Epoch is just absolutely gorgeous. Yes, it does have some of the stereotypical fantasy locations. However, the time travel really keeps every single zone feeling very diverse, and it opens up the opportunity for 11th Hour to do some insanely crazy stuff with map design and enemy design. One minute you're fighting sludge monsters or skeletons, the next you're fighting dinosaurs. Oh, how about you're fighting an Egyptian steampunk-themed robot? The potential here is limitless. There are many areas that I just walk into and just want to hang out just because I enjoy the backdrop. I can't tell you how many times while I was just hanging out on stream, talking to chat, I just sit my character at the end of the world just to stare into the black hole. Now for one of the biggest weaknesses of Last Epoch. While its world design is absolutely fantastic, its gear design, character design, overuse of enemy models, spell effects, they leave me flaccid. More flaccid than the first time I found out about what mukbangs are. What's wrong with us? If this game were Path of Exile, where you can't even see your character because your screen is lighting up like the Griswolds on Christmas, I would understand why they wouldn't bother with gear design or character models. But it's not. In Last Epoch, there is no constant flash bombing, which is a great thing, but you're stuck with a character that looks like they're in starter gear at level 80. Gear icons showing you this dope looking flaming sword, or you have a skull mask only for you to equip it and you just feel like you're LARPing. I don't want to just be strong. I want to look strong, regardless of whether other people can see my character or not. It's really disappointing in a game that has so much creativity in its world design, but doesn't have any appeal in its character models or its equipment. I know the game has a functionality first approach to game design, not getting caught up in the frills and just working on the thrills. But you want the overall experience to feel rewarding, not just tangibly through gear, but thematically through its equipment. So moving on from just general first impressions, I think something else that I really want to touch on is just how does it actually feel to play Last Epoch? What is it like when you first start your character and you're playing the game? And I have to say, it's probably one of the most impressive things about Last Epoch. It's the fact that you have so much agency from the start, and they do such a good job with ability cadence, where you're constantly gaining new abilities. You have access to ability skill trees for every single ability in the game, so the longer you're playing, you're feeling these abilities become more and more dynamic and transforming to the vision that you have for your character. This isn't the game where you're arbitrarily casting the same 2 or 3 skills for 10 levels. No, you can cast all kinds of different things, and for the most part, the game is so flexible that you can do just about anything that you want. You can specialize in skills, use unspecialized skills, and swap between those specializations anytime that you want to. However, keep in mind there is a respec cost. What it does is it lowers the level of any skill to a predetermined level depending on, well, your character's max level. For example, if your character's skill was at level 12 and you respect it, the new skill would start at level 4, and then it would have boosted experience until it hits level 12. While this does feel like it eases the pain of respecing, I'm still wondering, like, why do we punish gamers for trying new things and experimenting with their builds? It's not really dynamic gameplay. It doesn't actually have like a cost. It just feels annoying. And even in Last Epoch, this is ass backwards. The cost is reduced the higher the level you go. So you're punished more at the beginning for trying to figure out the game than you are at the end when you know more about it. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. It's a common mechanic in a lot of ARPGs, and to be honest with you, I'm just sick of it and I just wish it would go away. So after picking some of your favorite skills, coming up with an idea for a build, killing a bunch of monsters, downing a couple bosses, eventually you're going to come face to face with the game's crafting system. And I'll be honest with you, it's a little bit complicated. However, it is very, very cool once you figure it out. I feel like this is something they should do a better job of explaining in the game rather than just giving us a tooltip. Maybe force players to craft certain items as a part of the main story so that everybody understands how this system works. But instead of giving you guys a full breakdown on crafting, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview. Let's say you find an item that you like, or a piece of gear that you like, or a weapon, whatever it might be. You can add, remove, change, increase all of the stats on that item to your heart's content, as long as it has enough forging power. The nice thing is that you're able to create items that are tailored specifically for your build and exactly what you're looking for. So you might not be able to get the drops that you're looking for, but you might be able to craft it. The best part is this includes uniques. You can make uber uniques, these super unique items. However, there is a special crafting system that's for that, and you actually have to do a dungeon in the end game to be able to even do it. I just love the fact that this game gives so much agency to the players. We have so much choice and so much customization over our builds, and it's just, oh, it's so freeing. So I'd like to talk about my mid-game experience a little bit, and this is actually where things get a bit murky with Last Epoch. See, I'm a story-driven Andy. I love a good story, especially in my ARPGs. I kind of want a reason to grind. Why am I killing these monsters? Why am I trying to save these people? And it's not necessarily that I believe Last Epoch has a bad story. To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you what it is because I just lost track over time. It's just poorly delivered. There's no cutscenes that kind of break away and pull you out of the monotony. Voice lines are sometimes really good. Sometimes they sound like a dude you just pulled out of a Walmart parking lot. Other times they're like halfway voice line, which is really weird. So you're sitting there expecting them to talk it out, but then they just like stop mid-sentence. It's just odd. I think if the story was better delivered, maybe it would be better received. And this is my biggest criticism of the game, which sucks because It's coming at the middle of the game, which is probably one of the most crucial areas for a game to stay good, because that's where you need to get the player hooked, especially in the case of Last Epoch that has incredible endgame systems that I honestly cannot wait to talk to you guys about. But you contextualize it, the game just becomes this perfect storm of bland in the middle of the game. You have a poorly delivered story, you have bad looking characters, you have ugly looking equipment, you have really unremarkable looking skills. The game just starts to feel like it rolls on, and you don't know why you're playing it anymore, and you end up just giving up. I've had this game since it's been in early access. I've played it off and on, and every single time I played it, I put the game back down within probably a few hours of play, just because it just never hooked me. There was nothing there. There was no it factor, and that's what it is. The game, in the middle of the game, I'll say, doesn't seem to have an identity. That's the best way for me to describe it. There's nothing remarkable about the game. There's nothing that's like, oh, this is going to be good. Oh, this is going to be really cool later. You don't get to see the really cool later until the very end of the game. You get a little bit of a taste of it with the skill systems and the crafting system and stuff like that, but it's not enough. It wasn't until I finally dedicated myself to really sit down and play Last Epoch, really give it a try, get all the way to the end game, promise myself that I would beat the game, that I finally got to engage with all of the systems that make this game so worthwhile to play. All right, enough of that. Let's get on to the end game, which you're really here for, right? I'm not going to dive into all the specifics of the end game. I'm going to give a very brief overview on some of the different mechanics, but I will say this. Last Epoch has the best end game I've ever experienced in any video game ever. It is the most complete, it is the most fulfilling, and it is the most fun to engage with. It is an insane strength of this game. I highly suggest that you play the game just to play the end game. Last Epoch's end game is made up of 3 components: monoliths, dungeons, and the arena. Monoliths are a mapped network, or maps, of all these different branching paths where you get to actually choose specific loot drops from every single one of them. You see a node that says rings, you go click on it, you run that map, and you are going to get rings at the end of it. You see one that says unique chest piece, well, that's what you're going to get when you end up finishing that part of the map. As you complete the map, you gain stability. When you get stability, you unlock quests. You complete the 3 timeline quests. Once you've completed the 3 timeline quests, you'll fight a boss, and then you'll move on to the next part of the timeline. Speaking of the timeline quests, sometimes you're going to get these boss fights that are just so fantastic. And it upsets me that they don't show up more in the story, because that would really keep a lot of other players hooked. But it feels like you're in a Final Fantasy XIV raid or something. Everything's super well telegraphed, and they are just so engaging. They feel rewarding to play, even though you might not get the loot that you're looking for. The dungeons in Last Epoch are some of the most fun that you're going to have playing this game. It's not necessarily because the dungeons themselves are so remarkable, it's that their systems are super cool. The Lightless Arbor, for instance, is just a gold sink. You go in, you fight enemies, you unlock doors, but at the very end you get a vault. And when you get that vault, you get to make different choices. You get to say, I'll spend this much and I'll get this reward, and then you continue through until you actually open the vault, and then you go pick up all of your loot. I really, really like this idea. It's the best gold sink option I've ever seen in a game, and I hope that Diablo IV sees this and hopefully takes note of it, because it would be an awesome addition into D4. The Soulfire Bastion is just a straight up Gamba dungeon. You go in, you collect souls, and then you use a trader at the end of the dungeon to Gamba for different items that you want. All right, so now for the coolest dungeon in the entire game, and honestly in almost all ARPGs. And it's not because the Temporal Sanctum is a remarkable dungeon, it's pretty cool in design, but it's because of the fact that it has the coolest mechanic I've ever seen in ARPGs. You get to craft your own unique. So how this works is while you're doing your timeline quests, or you're killing bosses, or you're interacting with the other dungeons in the game, you're picking up unique items. Now, some of these unique items are going to have a legendary potential between 1 and 4. And what that represents is how many stats you can pull off of another item to put onto that unique. You're able to craft a unique specific to your character build. This is some end level stuff. This is min-maxed to min-maxed, and I love it. I'm not really going to talk about the arena because, to be honest with you, it's actually not that cool. It's just fighting waves and waves of enemies, but it's more or less just a achievement thing than anything else. It's really testing to see how far your character can go, how far your character can last. It's kind of cool in that. Maybe they use it for like leaderboards or something like that. If they do that, that'd be awesome. But other than that, it's not really all that crazy or groundbreaking. I love ARPGs. I love Last Epoch. Over the years, I've tried it on and off again. I told you guys how I've had my issues with it. However, once I really sat down, I fell in love with the game, not because of its story or because of the actual leveling experience, but just because of how fun it is to interact with the systems that are within this game. See, the really remarkable thing about Last Epoch is the fact that 11th Hour didn't just steal a bunch of mechanics from a bunch of other games. No, they took them and they expanded upon them. And they ended up creating some of their own at the same time. That's hard to do, especially in this space. It's difficult to innovate. And what they've done is commendable. This is a game that I will wholeheartedly say that anybody watching this that is even slightly interested, go buy it. It's on Steam. It's $35. Go buy it. It's an incredible deal. It's the perfect game to hold you over until Diablo IV, and it's a game that will likely be in your seasonal rotation. I know that it's going to be in mine. Well, anyway, I hope you guys liked the video. This is my first time doing one of these. I felt like I was kind of all over the place. I'm not really too sure. It's difficult to kind of organize your thoughts when you're thinking about your overall experience with a game, especially when you're trying to contextualize it from the minute that you started and then 100 hours later. But I actually really enjoyed doing this. I learned a lot about the kind of content that I make and just more about games in general and how to critically think about games. I really appreciate all the support that you guys give me. I really love seeing how big the channel is already growing, how big the community is getting. I can't wait to cover more games in the future with you guys. If you guys like the video, drop a comment down below, drop a sub. Remember, you guys can become channel members and support me. Come see me on my live streams a couple times a week. Podcast on Sunday at 2 p.m. PST. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. Peace.